Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Welcome to Speech in the Silence, the podcast that is all Thelema all the time. Visit us and listen to our complete archive of programming at speechinthesilence.com or contact us at thelemapodcast@gmail.com.
The following is an excerpt from the book Naturalistic Occultism, which I wrote a few years ago as an attempt to expand on Aleister Crowley's idea of scientific illuminism. His approach is enshrined in the motto, the method of science, the aim of religion. This chapter is from the Introduction to Scientific Illuminism section of Naturalistic Occultism, entitled A Naturalistic Scientific Approach to Magic. Naturalistic occultism is the attempt to understand occultism without positing anything supernatural or even found outside the mainstream social and natural sciences such as psychology and neurology. It's the attempt to cut superstitious beliefs and acts away from the practice of occultism, ceremonial magic in particular, specifically with a critical and pragmatic eye. Can the astral plane and astral projection be understood in terms of contemporary science? How can the effects of ritual be explained physiologically? Is there a psychological reason why people might think divination and horoscopes work? These are the kinds of questions that a naturalistic occultist asks. This book presumes at least some familiarity with the various aspects of ceremonial magic. There's a great deal of fantasy, swindling, superstition, and charlatanism in the field of occultism. Hopefully this work will encourage the scientific pursuit of the study of ceremonial ritual and occultism in general. In separating the gold from the dross, we will question several assumptions about the world of occultism, and, as a result, many of these assumptions will have to be altered or discarded. Naturalistic occultism does not attempt to explain mystery, the world, and especially the results of magic, with more mystery, like New Age and occult books often do, such as explaining feelings, insights, and concepts in terms of mysterious energies, chakras, planes, spheres, rays, planets, trigrams, etc. Instead, the attempt is to try to ground occultism in modern science while ridding ourselves of as many unnecessary and superstitious assumptions as possible. In a sentence, naturalistic occultism is a paradigm that approaches the occult with scientific knowledge, skeptical rigor, and a pragmatic attitude. It is a continuation and evolution of Aleister Crowley's motto for the AA, the method of science, the aim of religion. In this sense, naturalistic occultism is essentially a form of, or just another name for, scientific illuminism. It holds that you need not look farther than psychology and neurology for naturalistic explanations of the various aspects of the occult. The rest of the book is dedicated to exploring this basic idea. A naturalistic approach to magic means that magic's theories, conduct, and results will be understood and explained in terms of the natural world. No supernatural entities or forces will be entertained, as they are not needed. This will be accomplished in this book by explaining occultism's many facets primarily with psychology, the study of the human mind and behavior, as well as neurology, the study of the human nervous system, especially the brain. It's unfortunate that occultism is plagued incessantly by superstition. This could largely have to do with the connection and overlap that occultism has with the New Age community. It's notorious for pushing pseudoscience in all of its different forms. We will frown upon making vague or ambiguous claims like invoking astral currents or subtle energies, unless these are explained further in psychological or physiological terms. A scientific approach to magic means the theories, conduct, and results of magic will be understood and explained with a scientific attitude. This attitude includes skepticism, not cynicism, a focus on the empirical or the directly observed evidence, and the desire to fit any so-called occult happenings into a scientific worldview. Skepticism means facing explanations with doubt and suspending judgment about any claims made by others until one is provided evidence. The accumulated facts and theories of the natural sciences, especially psychology and neurology, are ever growing, and more than enough to explain virtually all supposedly occult phenomena. To begin this scientific approach, we must see that there's something absolutely fundamental that neurology accepts, but many people do not realize or understand. Our perception of the world and ourselves, in fact our entire consciousness, is essentially a product of the workings of that marvel of nature known as the human nervous system. In a quote from Neil Carson in the book Physiology of Behavior, he writes, "The human nervous system makes possible all that we can do, all that we can know, and all that we can experience. We know that consciousness can be altered by changes in the structure or chemistry of the brain. Therefore, we may hypothesize that consciousness is a physiological function, just like behavior. All we can do, perceive, think, learn, remember, act, all of this is made possible by the integrated activity of the cells of the nervous system." End quote. Specifically, the human body has adapted to receive external sensory stimuli and interpret that information, creating a representation in awareness. For example, vibrations of electromagnetic energy hit the eye, rods and cones are activated in the eyeball, and turn that stimulus into electrical signals, which are then sent through the optical nerve, a rally point in the brain, and then to many complex parts of the visual cortex. Only then do we become aware of some sight. The entire so-called outer world is understood as the human nervous system retrieving, interpreting, and producing a conscious awareness of sensory stimuli. The entire so-called inner world of thoughts, emotions, memories, desires, decision-making, and so on are understood to be a product of the workings of the human brain in conjunction with the other systems of the body, such as the endocrine and circulatory systems. Therefore, the entire world of which we are aware, mind, body, and environment, is a product of the intricate and complex workings of the human nervous system, interpreting the world. Changes in the nervous system will be accompanied by changes in perception. This was called the, quote, astonishing hypothesis by Francis Crick, the co-discoverer of the double helix structure of DNA, who wrote, quote, "The astonishing hypothesis is that you, your joys, your sorrows, your memories, and your ambitions, your sense of personal identity and free will, are in fact no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules." End quote. This is one basic fact, which we may begin to integrate and keep in mind as we pursue a more scientific understanding of occult phenomena. Magic might therefore be defined as the volitional control of the human nervous system through the manipulation of itself, the rest of the body, and its immediate environment. The study and application of magical correspondences, for example, that the magus equals Mercury, which equals Bet, which equals 2. The study and application of magical correspondences can be understood as the intentional conditioning of associations between various sensory stimuli like sights, sounds, smells, and tastes with abstract or moral ideas such as intelligence or courage or cunning. Initiation itself might be understood as the deconditioning or overcoming mental and behavioral habits, and then reconditioning of the human nervous system in accordance with the volition of the organism. All these ideas and more are treated more fully in later chapters of Naturalistic Occultism. The view espoused in this book, called Naturalistic Occultism and Scientific Illuminism interchangeably, is naturalistic, no reliance or reference to the supernatural, scientific, systematic, clear, and using the latest facts of science. And pragmatic, things accepted as provisionally true because they're effective and useful. The reasons for these are many, but foremost is the vision of scientific understanding of magic that was first enshrined by Aleister Crowley in the phrase scientific illuminism. He also called this skeptical theurgy, and we might add, demystified mysticism. He gave it the motto, the method of science, the aim of religion. This vision sees magic not as a superstitious, haphazard collection of beliefs and rituals, but rather a systematic set of methods to attain specific ends, especially altered states of consciousness. Although they're being applied to occultism, the facts and theories presented here are based on recent scientific experiments and writing. Because the nature of the scientific pursuit is essentially to propose the most correct hypothesis possible at any point, and then test that hypothesis through empirical experiments that might prove the hypothesis to be false, all the conclusions drawn in this book are suggestive and provisional. The ideas are therefore never absolutely conclusive. For example, there's a neurological explanation given of the astral body, astral plane, and astral projection in a chapter, which is a suggestion based on recent research into out-of-body experiences. There could easily be a new study that overturns the older studies, gives a new perspective on them, or adds to their clarity. The essential attitude we adopt is therefore both scientific rigor and skeptical open-mindedness. The hypotheses given to explain occult phenomena conform to the standards of science, while also allowing the possibility that they may be overturned in the future. This is a built-in safeguard against dogma in science, which in the field of occultism may not only use it, but it may desperately need it. Occultism, as I'm sure anyone who is even remotely familiar with the field is aware, is full of charlatans and imposters and plain fakes who swindle people out of their money, time, and dignity. The amount of pseudoscience peddled under the labels of New Age spirituality and occultism is astounding, but it's mostly just unfortunate. What these charlatans end up doing is discrediting the entire field of occultism as an avenue of serious study. We share the lament of Dion Fortune, who over a half-century ago wrote the following, quote, 90% of the books on occultism are conceived in the spirit and written in the manner of the penny gaff. They offend the taste of any educated person. As long as the occult doctrines are presented in such a guise that they can never command the respect of those who respect is worth having. There must always, it is true, be milk for babes and strong meat for strong men. But there is no need to accept silliness for simplicity, or intellectual confusion for profound wisdom. Large chunks of unverified and unverifiable statements, and a thick, treacly smear of sentimental humanitarianism are the mixture from which all too many esoteric books are compounded, and they make one ashamed to call oneself an occultist. That's Dion Fortune in her book Sane Occultism. All the public knows of occultism and magic are things like superficial horoscopes seen in magazines, or grandiose tarot card readings received on the street, or ridiculous claims of pop psychics like Sylvia Browne. One need only browse the occult/metaphysical section of any bookstore to see that any kind of serious tomes on occultism by serious occultists are juxtaposed with books dedicated to various superstitions and pseudosciences. There's basically two types who might be averse to the view of magic as espoused in naturalistic occultism. Number one, the charlatan who fears and hates science. And number two, the pseudoscientist who disingenuously makes use of the rigorous and systematic sound of scientific language to make his or her fraud appear scientific and therefore legitimate. The first type includes those who always give the argument against the scientific understanding of anything occult that it's a, quote, materialization, or a, quote, psychologization, or simply just a, quote, making it mundane. This type finds some strange satisfaction in explaining the mysteries of the world with more mystery, more strange, ambiguous words. Perhaps out of a misunderstanding that science says everything they believe in is a total illusion. It doesn't. They retreat into the obscure and supernatural to explain their beliefs, many thinking this gives a sort of, quote, magical feel to their lives. It is, in fact, a depreciation of the natural and of the human to think that explaining occult phenomena in terms of the human psyche is somehow a quote, reduction. We can probably all agree that occultism should be a tool to enhance and expand awareness, so as to more effectively appreciate, embrace, and integrate into reality, rather than using it as a tool to escape from reality. In contrast to this first type's fear, naturalistic occultism tries to show that nature itself, including human consciousness, is mysterious and magical. All the extraordinary visions, feelings, and states of mind of humanity are latent in the psyche. Instead of this being a so-called psychologization of magic, it's an infusing of the psyche with magic. A scientific understanding of occult phenomena as belonging to the human psychophysiology does not diminish their beauty, interest, or knowledge-giving quality, or even their mystery. In fact, we acknowledge the human psyche as beautiful, interesting, full of potential wisdom to be uncovered, and ultimately mysterious. As it's been said, quote, it's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. The claim that science is so-called reducing or limiting all these things is essentially based on a misunderstanding of science itself. Science is only limiting in the same sense that sanity limits what we take as reality. The second type that might be averse to the ideas of naturalistic occultism are the peddlers of pseudoscience, those who use the language of science to present their superstitious claims as legitimate. The prevalence of using pseudoscience to support this charlatanism in the occult is very widespread, to say the least. How many people have heard various machines supposedly showing you your aura? Or how many people have heard explanations of why homeopathy supposedly works? Or how many people have heard the correlations between chakras and nerve ganglia in the body that somehow proves their physical reality? In a sense, this type is worse than the first because they manipulate the validity of the scientific pursuit to give their own pursuits a false shroud of validity. Olav Hammer calls this strategy of legitimization scientism in his book Claiming Knowledge. To give just one example among seemingly infinite, there's a group called the, quote, Spiritual Science Research Foundation. From their name, you'd think they conducted some kind of scientific research, but you would be wrong. If you look at their actual material, you'll see various diagrams, graphs, and tables of data about different things. For example, the effectiveness of various positions of prayer. The tables have numbers like 5% or 30% to show the supposed effectiveness of different physical positions for praying. What are these numbers based on? They are entirely based on intuitive guesses of their author, absolutely no resemblance whatsoever to any kind of empirical scientific research. Calling one's own intuitive introspection science does not make it science. Arranging numbers into a table does not make that data somehow empirically verified or scientifically valid in any way. Unfortunately, there are always those who will see the name of this organization and its charts and graphs of data and end up thinking that they are scientifically investigating spirituality. On the contrary, they are simply reaffirming and solidifying their own superstitions through pseudoscientific justifications. It's either a fundamental misunderstanding of what constitutes scientific research or a deliberate attempt to manipulate people into thinking one's theories are scientifically verified and therefore legitimate. In short, pseudoscience is nothing but fraud, cloaking itself in the language and symbols of science. Natural occultists have, quote, set our faces against all charlatanism, whether of miracle-mongering or obscurantism, and all those persons who have reputation or wealth by such means may expect ruthless exposure, whether of their vanity or their dishonesty, for by no gentler means can they be taught." End quote. That comes from Aleister Crowley in The Equinox. For every pseudoscientist's miracle, we substitute a repeatable method. For every charlatan's obscurantism, we substitute a clear scientific understanding. We agree with Dion Fortune that, quote, "all available occult phenomena should be carefully investigated, not only for the sake of obtaining knowledge, but also for the sake of unmasking charlatans." End quote. In a very real and intentional way, naturalistic occultism is part of a long tradition of attempting to unify science and religion. That is, naturalistic occultism represents part of the effort to embrace the power of the scientific method and its current collection of data and theories, while also acknowledging the validity, power, and subjective reality of religious experience. The main obstacle to occultism being systematized, clarified, and simplified is the common aversion to science in occultists today. As mentioned before, this mainly comes from the false presumption that science somehow reduces or limits the phenomena of which occultism speaks. Instead of seeing the deadening and so-called psychologization of magic in approaching occultism naturalistically, we instead see an exciting synthesis and progress, which opens up many new opportunities and avenues for applications and exploration of different practices. A new set of standards opens up a new set of possibilities. Scientific naturalistic occultism is not the last word or the last step. If anything, it is a first step. Naturalistic occultism points toward a new type of occultist, one who does not fear science, but instead acknowledges and wields its power, who sees nature and the psyche not as dead, uncovered in the sense of fully known or uninteresting, and non-mysterious, but rather sees nature and the psyche as alive, containing uncharted territory ready to be explored, and endlessly mysterious, who informs their scientific knowledge through their experiences and understands and improves their experiences through their scientific knowledge, who acknowledges the subjective reality of occult and mystical phenomena without overstepping their bounds and imputing objective reality to any connections seen, visions, or sounds heard, or meanings interpreted. One who embraces both the experiential beauty of occultism's possibilities and the cognitive beauty of science's systematic approach of rigor and clarity in explaining phenomena. More will be said about this new type of practitioner in later chapters of the book, but for now we may end with this quotation from Aleister Crowley in The Equinox, Volume 1, Number 2. Quote, 1. We are mystics, ever eagerly seeking a solution of unpleasant facts. Number 2. We are men of science, ever eagerly acquiring pertinent facts. Number 3. We are skeptics, ever eagerly examining those facts. Number 4. We are philosophers, ever eagerly classifying and coordinating those well-criticized facts. Number 5. We are Epicureans, ever eagerly enjoying the unification of those facts. Number 6. We are philanthropists, ever eagerly transmitting our knowledge of those facts to others. Number 7. Further, we are syncretists, taking truth from all systems, ancient and modern. And eclectics, ruthlessly discarding the inessential factors in any one system, however perfect. End quote. We are scientific illuminists. We are naturalistic occultists. Thank you for listening.
This has been a production of Speech in the Silence. Thanks for listening. Visit us at speechinthesilence.com or write us an email at thelimapodcast@gmail.com. Love is the law. Love under will.